It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by CartKing.com. 877-986-7771. Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Perhaps your current business wants to add multiple point-of-sale locations across the country. Maybe the facility you manage right now could add additional revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services down there in the lobby. CartKing.com can be the answers to your need. CartKing.com is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile retail coffee, food, and carts and kiosks that money can buy. For 20 years, CartKing.com has been working with clients and corporations across America to provide indoor carts and kiosks for any application. So what you do is you go to www.cart-king.com. There's a little dash between cart and king. You check out the different designs. You think of what applies to your business. They'll custom design it for you. They'll custom build it. Then they'll ship it worldwide. 877-986-7771. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you. You get a good deal. Okay. I'm really excited about today's show. I've been watching these documentaries all day long. One is called The Source Family. But there's several others on YouTube as well. It's about this group, this communal group back in the 70s, led by a gentleman named Jim Bakker, who later became, he took the name Father Yod, and then later after that, Yahuwah. We have one of the original members of this group, Isis Aquarian. She was involved in the documentary, The Source Family. She's also written several books about this. One is called, let me pull this up here, The Source, The Untold Story of Father Yod, Yahuwah, 13, and the Source Family. They got a website, fatheryod.org, and that's Yod is spelled Y-O-D, so fatherYOD.org. Isis Aquarian, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much. Tell us about yourself. Who is Isis Aquarian?
Well, you want Charlene Peters to begin with, or Isis?
Oh, yeah. Why don't we start with Charlene Peters? Yeah.
Okay, I was oldest of 7 children. My father was in the Air Force, so I grew up in a military family. Came to Hawaii. We were stationed in Hawaii when I was 6 years old, and that developed the love of the Hawaiian Islands, where I live now. And it's my soul home, but L.A. is my heart home. And what happened was after high school, I went to D.C. to work for my senator, ended up a White House aide under Johnson, and then I moved to New York and worked for Braniff Airlines and got into the whole social scene there. And then I heard about the hippies and the flower children in L.A., and I was very drawn to come to L.A. It just seemed light, bright, spiritual, and I dropped out, came to L.A., became a hippie flower child, and absolutely loved it. It was an amazing time, which we are in the renaissance of full on right now, with the 60s and 70s. And I joined the Source Family, but before the Source Family, I did live and became engaged to a very famous rock and roll photographer called Ron Raffelli. So I had a very good life going, a very interesting life. And I had met Jim Bakker before I had even met Ron and moved in with him. Jim Bakker was a Hollywood, a local icon figure to begin with. He was very famous. He had 3 famous restaurants on Sunset. And he ended up dropping out and opening the Source restaurant. So I knew Jim Bakker at the Old World and his wife, Dora, who I became good friends with. But I had lost touch with him for a couple of years, and one day we needed models for a poster we were doing, Jesus Christ Superstar, and Ron said, I need a lot of Jesus-looking type of people with long hair. And I went, I heard that my friend Jim opened the Source, and they're all walking around, with robes and long hair. And the first vegetarian restaurant that had opened, mainstream. And it was very famous. And I said, I'll go down and reconnect with him. And I walked onto the Source patio, and Jim came walking out looking like Moses. He was no longer Jim Baker. And something happened. It's very hard for me to explain. It's like I instantly shifted. I knew my destiny. I knew my commitments to this soul. And I never looked back. That was it. And I'm still there with it because I was made the family historian. I was one of his 14 wives and one of the family administrators. And so, my agreement with him was, I would help him save that legacy. And we had made commitments before reincarnating for this work, and we both knew it. We both, validated it with each other, as woo-woo as that sounds. But that was, the way it was, and that was that.
Wait, so you believe that you knew him in a past life?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we instantly knew who each other was and our commitments and our agreements. And it was just a really amazing time in L.A. in that period, which, the Source family, we were part of the pioneers of that whole movement. And we do, and it did and does have historical and cultural relevance. So here we are.
Yeah.
We were a commune. We were a brotherhood. The Source restaurant supported us. We had we lived a spiritual lifestyle. We lived the wisdom teachings of the mystery schools. We were a little different than most of the communes. He was a student of Yogi Bhajan's, and Yogi Bhajan became our spiritual grandfather. But we were something unto ourselves at a certain point. We basically ended up kind of having our own language, and we lived as a family, as a group. And
well, give us an idea. What were the teachings? What was he teaching you, and what the kind of disciplines were you following?
Well, the teachings, we took teachings from everywhere and took what we wanted out of it. We went through everything, the mystery school teachings, the Kabbalah, Hebrew, Islamic, the Bible, and, because it all has basically a same thread if you discern it. It all basically has the same teachings, the same message, and we were on a evolutionary morphing to a spiritual being, a light body, star beings. We did believe other planets existed, and this was not the only time we were here, and this was a time, that we were morphing into the next golden age of Aquarius, which was a new program of being more of a spiritual being. And, the old program, the old rules were not going to work. And that was part of what the 60s and 70s brought. They brought a crossover and a breakdown of the old paradigm. And things like home birth. It was illegal to have a birth at home. We could have been put in jail, as crazy as that sounds. But we homeschooled. We had home births. We were vegetarians. We got up early in the morning. We got up for 4 a.m. meditation before the sun rose, which is, it's a very ancient practice. And we greeted the sun. Everything was sacred. Our sex life was tantra. It was sacred sex. We did use what we called the sacred herb, which was marijuana. And we only used it in the morning. One hit, and that was it for spiritual purposes, meditation. So we had, and our music, rock and roll was, to this day, it was spontaneous. It was not rehearsed. It was done in the early morning hours, and that was, where we were heading and living in that frequency.
So you guys
there
were
was a frequency. So
yeah. You were vegetarian. Were you? How about milk and cheese and bread?
well, yeah, that's vegan. We weren't vegan. We did do dairy. Yes.
Okay, and also too. Now I know one thing was that you weren't allowed to cut your hair, or the men weren't allowed to cut their hair or shave. But what about the women?
It's not that we weren't allowed to.
Yeah.
It was just it was a spiritual practice that we believed in, and it made sense. That the hair is every part of our body has a physical and a spiritual purpose, and it's long been known that the mana or the power or the spiritual makeup of mankind has to do with your hair being long. It's kind of like an antenna, that takes in energy.
Well, what about the women shaving? With the women shaving their legs and stuff and armpits? Would they?
No, we didn't. No, we didn't do that. I'll tell you something. This is very interesting. When we came into the family, very shortly, because of a frequency we were living in and our practices, and the way we ate, the way we thought, the way we spoke, we changed. We watched our cellular makeup change. And then when people came in after that, we used to just watch it. We were like dumbfounded to a point because our bodies changed. It's not like we had hairy armpits that you could braid, or excessive hair anywhere. It was very, very beautiful. Our bodies became very beautiful. And when you go into developing your spiritual being or your body of light, it changes you. We had a glow. Nobody wore makeup. But if you look at any of the photos, we were just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, I've been vegan now for about 4 years, I guess 3 or 4 years now, and it's definitely changed me.
You.
Oh yeah, absolutely changes it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what happened with us.
Now, what about fasting? Total, just water fasting or anything like that?
Well, we went through different programs that you could do. I don't think anybody just did a water fast.
Okay.
The thing about Jim Baker was he was a nutritionist. I mean, he had worked in the field of body, mind, and spirit many, many years before he even opened the source. So we had a really good, guidance within the nutritional and our bodies, and nothing too extreme. He was very good friends with Jack LaLanne and Paul Braggs, and the pioneers of that time in the health and nutrition and the new way of eating field.
And now you mentioned that he was a student of you mentioned Bhagwan, I think it was. Who was this?
Yogi Bhajan, Yogi G, we call him.
Bhagwan.
He had ashrams in L.A.
Okay, now where else did he get his teachings from?
He got them from anywhere that made sense. We had people send us stuff, or books would appear, or somebody would bring a book in and, just relate to something. I mean, every morning we had a morning meditation class. We never knew what was going to be talked about or come down or happening. And after a certain period of time, he actually started taking in his own information that he was getting, which today we call it channeling. We didn't know what it was back then. But we were into the secret teachings of all ages from the Manly P. Hall Center. Blavatsky, like I said, you name it. And he was a Vedanta monk for a while. So we got a very well-rounded spiritual education and caught up. He brought us basically